Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Curriculum Committee of the Board meeting for Monday, September the 8th. Before we hand it over to Dr. Gagaitis, just checking to see if there is any comment on tonight's agenda. Okay, seeing none, let's pass it over.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marino. Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back to Curriculum Committee of the Board. This is our first meeting of the school year, and our agenda this evening consists of sharing with you our summer programming that took place throughout the district. We are also going to talk about a fabulous induction class and what we did and planned for this summer, as well as professional learning opportunities that took place with all of our staff members. We're also going to delve into a little bit of elementary math and get you updated with what we are working on there. And we have one policy to share with you this evening. So we're going to first start with our summer programming. I am going to introduce Mr. Merck and Mr. Passetti, who worked hard to get our summer academy up and running. And we're going to start with that first.
All right, thank you, everybody. So we'll be discussing Summer Academy, which we ran 2 sections of this summer, as we do in years past. We had one at the middle level and then one at the elementary sites. As you can see here, we had 2 of our teachers operate as coordinators. Did a magnificent job. Dan Bennett, who is a middle school math teacher, was the middle school coordinator for the program, and Nina Protowski, who is our library media specialist down at Conshohocken, was the elementary coordinator. So we thank them both for their service there. For academy programming at elementary, typically what we do is we walk through a typical day with the board, as well as any special guests that we had during that time. So the typical day for students looks very comparable to what they would experience during the school day here at CSD. Morning meetings, shared readings, skill groups, novel study, small group work was really a key feature here because we had the privilege of having a small cohort of students. We were able to really customize what those skills groups look like. They also engage in some writing and research, math skills practice, guest assemblies, and a reader's theater. Some of those special guests, just to highlight a couple, the BCA Step Show, which we invite every year, did a fabulous, fabulous presentation. They also came to CMS as well for their program. We always invite the Plymouth Township Police Department, the Harmonville Fire Company to come in and speak with the students. TNT Amusements incorporated in World of Pinball and Arcade, which was actually very informative. If you would like to know how to repair a pinball machine, I have a real basal knowledge of that now, thanks to that presentation. We also had an author visit as well. Illustrators, we had Jen Fitzgerald, Sydney Alexi, and Rose Harrington. Some of those names may look familiar to some of the folks in this room, so it was fantastic to have in-house folks come and present there. We also had some yoga for the students and seeing eye dog service, or seeing eye service dogs, rather. At the middle school, you'll see that we had some overlap. Their day looked comparable, with a real emphasis on the morning meeting, which we had refined last year, especially at the middle level, that being a really important feature for building community with kids. The guest assemblies there, again, you'll see a couple of those repeats there. We did have Gestolfo's martial arts there. I was regrettably not there for that one, but that is always a hit with the students as well. The Zoo and STEM on Wheels from the YMCA of Greater Brandywine. And then the other different vendor that we had in our guests was Lockheed Martin, who we started hosting last year to talk about engineering, to talk about aerodynamics, and a variety of other engineering concepts with the students.
With any program, you have your successes and challenges. So the successes that we experienced with the Summer Academy, we had 2 coordinators, which was great. That's, we were able to separate them into 2 buildings to, be able to have more space, have the appropriate classrooms for the grade levels. We did have a data-driven invitation process. We used our Linkit benchmark assessments to kind of filter through the students to kind of start that list of who we were going to invite. Staffing, we were fully staffed. Majority of the staff was from outside the district, but we were fully staffed, which was great. Transportation, we had transportation for all students, to and from the program, and then food service. We provided breakfast and lunch each day. Some of the challenges that we had were inconsistent student attendance, academic growth, impacted by those attendance rates. And then the reason why we also put staffing as a challenge was we didn't have majority colonial teachers working a program. There were a lot of teachers from outside the district. And so, these were, some of the successes and challenges we experienced. And it's something that we saw kind of play out in the prior summers as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I
Can
was
we ask
gonna say,
questions
yeah,
now,
can we-
or do
you
we
want us
wait
to
till the end?
Yeah.
I've just had a question about the inconsistent student attendance. So I think I remember that being a challenge last year. So was this year better or worse?
It was comparable. When we look at students who attended more than 75% of the time, in first through fourth grade, it was 73% of students. In fifth through eighth grade, it was 70%. So 73 for the lower grades, 70% for the upper.
And do we know the reasons why? Are they similar to what they were last year?
They were, trips, students just not able to show up on certain days, things that just regularly happen over the summer.
And you have to sign up for this, correct? You have to register for this
Yes.
in advance? Okay.
Correct.
And then just a follow-up question to that around staffing and understanding that the majority of the staff you said came from outside the district. What kind of understanding do we have on why our staff chose not to participate?
It was posted as a job to apply for, but we don't really know why they didn't apply. But we just know that, they just might have summer plans that just don't fit in, to work a whole program. Because one of the things we did tell applicants was we prefer that they be there for the entire program, all 4 weeks.
Do we have any, yeah, I mean, I obviously understand that. I'm just curious about the onboarding process you have to do for folks who are not within our community and our own staff. Safety measures is a whole thing in and of itself in the onboarding process. So I'm just wondering, what can we do differently next year to help incentivize or create some excitement around that? And understanding that people are going to take trips, right? That's what we do in the summer. But how can we create substitute processes or alternate staffing options so that we can have our staff who knows our children supporting?
And some informal, I can give you some informal data, but we don't survey, but the informal data we hear from teachers is it's the summer. And then we do it in the middle of July or for the month of July, and they have their vacations planned as well, and they simply want to have time with their own children. So they don't prioritize teaching in summer academy, and I certainly don't blame any of them for that as well. They work hard all year long.
Sure.
But we do have 2 days of training to talk about the onboarding process for new staff. So, and we are lucky to have some repeat summer academy teachers that come back to us from other districts, or perhaps their aides in other districts hoping to return to Colonial each year.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wonder again if there's a way, and I totally respect.
Yeah.
I'm shutting down. It's summer. I'm not going to do anything related to school. But are there ways, or are there staff members who we're not tapping into that we could, or we can incentivize perhaps in another way? I don't know.
So I don't know, we could talk incentivizing if the board would like us to do that, but we consistently, again, like Mr. Merck said, there is a posting that goes out. We talk to all the principals ourselves. Can you ask people that have done it in the past, and perhaps they've had children now, and then it's just a different summer for them. And we have gone around and personally tapped teachers as well.
How many students did we have participating?
This past summer, we had 208 students. We had over 500 that were invited. And the 208, there were a couple of not more than a couple of no-shows. So there was a significant amount of students that did not tell us that they were not students, families that did not tell us that they were not coming. We do have attendance factors. We want to go into all that. We had, if we talk about the 12 days that the program lasted for, we had about 70-ish% from elementary and the secondary. I believe it was 73 at the elementary level.
The elementary was 73, a little less than 73, and then the For secondary, right around 70% altogether.
And we tracked those for attending 75% of the program. So the threshold was how many attended 75% of the program.
Excuse me, Rosemary?
Yeah.
Sorry. Um,
We typically try to have the guest speakers almost every single day. So I can understand if you were saying, oh, on Thursdays, when we know we have guest speakers, there's an increase in attendance. But we do some sort of guest activity every single day.
And how much did this 12-day program, what was the cost behind it with the
This summer
teachers?
was less than the summer before. So this summer it was about $250,000. Last summer, we were about $300,000. But if you recall, we were trying to encourage more attendance this year. So we lessened the hours to go till 2 o'clock. We have the days that we continue to shift back and forth.
Rosemary, so when you say 250, I'm curious, is that based off of the ones that attended or based off of who you thought was participating?
That is all in. The majority of it is staff, obviously, benefits and hiring, transportation, and food. One of the things we do is we hire staff based on the amount that accept. And then those that don't show up, we don't want to call anybody and say thank you anyway, but we don't need you.
Okay.
So that's all in, transportation, all the meals, and then salary and benefits.
All right, so I peeked at the next slide.
Oh, I was just going to say, if I...
So I assume this has to do with sort of some of the things that we're talking about.
Correct. So we just wanted to ask the board if they would be interested in rethinking some summer learning. We took a peek at some other local school districts, Upper Dublin, Lower Merion, North Penn, Upper Moreland, Wissahickon. They offer asynchronous summer assignments for their students. In thinking about this, I mean, we do believe that we plan for a great program to try to maintain or also close some gaps. But this way, we believe that every student would have that access. So, go ahead.
No, sorry to interrupt you. When did this program start? Was it post?
It was Summer Academy we always had Summer Literacy Blast. Summer Academy was created after COVID.
Okay, so if I'm remembering correctly, sort of to fill some of those gaps that we were seeing.
Correct.
Due to
Post-COVID.
Okay.
Yep.
That was my thought.
So with the thought of if the board was interested in pursuing asynchronous summer assignments, we would work throughout the school year with our teachers to create those assignments. We would have those assignments K to 12. We believe then that every student would have access to these assignments, not just our families that signed up their students. We could offer this in multiple language. Obviously, you know what the structured practice is all about. Students would have the ability to work at their own pace, their own schedule, while they're traveling or not traveling. Eliminate barriers for the families that just can't commit to that daily attendance. We had also talked as a team to begin this year, if the board was interested in developing this program again for maintaining or reinforcing those grade level skills, but building it further on in the year, developing enrichment activities for the following year, and making this a bigger program year after year.
Question about the asynchronous. So before we would spend the resources in developing the program, would we be asking the families if they would participate in an asynchronous program?
We would just leave it open for everyone. Everyone.
No, I don't mean that. I mean,
Okay.
because you're saying that the resources would create the program. So what I'm saying is before you start utilizing those resources to create a program, asking the families first, would they even participate in an asynchronous summer assignment so that those resources are utilized efficiently?
Right, like a survey.
And I had a question too. Would we, because I'm sure for some students, access to a teacher, would there be able to be some component built in where almost like there was office hours with?
So we did absolutely
teachers.
talk about that amongst our staff. So instead of having coordinators, we could hire, because we did have a handful, maybe not even a handful, of our own staff, a couple of our own staff, that maybe we would be able to hire them for office hours throughout the week, for families to just log on to a Zoom or whatever we use now, to work with teachers or have the ability to come in. The high school works with the virtual learning from the intermediate unit for credit recovery, and they do have a staff member on site at the library for any students participating that would want to come. So we had also talked about avenues that we could pursue with that.
And then I'm assuming funding-wise, it would cost the district probably less money because we're not having like the staff, the transportation. Because if I recall, right, when we started this program post-COVID, we used
Esther's money.
Esther's money.
We did.
But then said, how are we, like, obviously, we want to maintain, so budget-wise, I'm assuming with not knowing always where.
This was fully funded by Colonial
This was
this
fully
past
funded
summer.
this time.
So what we would do is we would pay our teachers a curriculum rate throughout this year in anticipation of having those lessons, those activities ready for the summer.
I think for me, like two things. One is I don't know if I can make an informed decision or even think about making a decision until I see some data around pre and post for the students who did attend. Because if we're saying, 208 students total, yeah, there were some that didn't come. Let's just say 150 did. I don't know what the exact number is. 150 is still a fair amount of students, right, who are getting this experience. And so if their data is showing that it was impactful for them and they had some growth, I think that's something that we should consider. And then the other piece is, I know how I feel about younger people being online and doing a lot online versus being in person and having these experiences with whatever it was, theater, Lockheed Martin, like whatever it was, right? The guest speakers and things like that. That's a concern that I have around the balance between here's more online and doing blank, which some of it may send you out into the community and do other things too. That would be great. Versus like being and socializing and things along those lines. So one is I need to see the data before I think I make any sort of decision or give any more input. And two, just my sentiment around like the power of being in person versus online.
And I guess that's kind of the piggyback I was going to ask. Are we saying the suggestion is all asynchronous or some kind of hybrid? Because everybody doesn't necessarily learn the same way. And so if we could have an option where it could be a hybrid situation, and understand that resource-wise they could get tricky, but some may be able to benefit from asynchronous, whereas others, to Sharon's point, others may not.
And I would
When you
say
say hybrid, Ms. Plant, do you mean more than the office hours or still maintaining some sort of a summer academy?
Correct. I'm saying maintain
Okay, so
some
both.
sort of physical in-person academy.
And we do have the data.
What is,
We could briefly share if you want to talk about some growth now, or would you prefer that there's a lot of it. We have it broken down by grade level, by attendance, and then comparing their pre-test results to their post-test results. Would you like me to email it? Oh, that's why I'm just putting it out there to see if it's something we even want to talk about. Because again, we don't share anything until typically January about summer school, so we wanted to bring it up to you now.
And I appreciate that. Did we do some sort of exit survey with the families that did attend and even those on the intermittent attendance to see like, I don't know, like might give us some more input as to when we're designing it or changing our program a little bit to help reinforce some of the thoughts that we had, or maybe we're thinking one thing and the families are thinking like, yeah, and I still wouldn't, like that wouldn't work. I do get it is summer. Kids there's a lot of things going on that are pulling their attention, and I do get it from a family standpoint. So sometimes parents want their kids to go and the kids don't want to go, right? So, Anyway, I just wondered if we had any kind of feedback, official feedback from.
No, but I
families.
think we could still be able to do that.
Yeah. Just a little survey, you
Yep.
know, even the families that like never showed up.
Mhm.
Like, hey, you know, could you just let us know, like, why would you still consider it for another year? Or, you know, is this, you know, it's,
But I do really like the part that every student can participate if they want, and you're not, you know, right, if somebody's looking at their calendar and they're like, oh, I'm gone for 6 of these 12 days, so I'm not going to register my child, but we're home the whole rest of the summer, asynchronously now, they can participate and they can gain all that information, which is huge. And then I feel like, God, Mark's not here to see me talking about the financial side of it, but I do think, especially in light of everything that's going on with budgets, like that's a big component that we probably need to look at and consider. You know, what's sort of best.
What is the rate that the state calculates for reimbursement if someone goes to a charter school to educate them for the year? Isn't it like 10,000 per student?
You remember? With reimbursement from the state when we have a charter school student.
cyber.
Rough budget. The cost to educate a student for the entire year is,
Something like 16,000.
I thought it was 16 too.
32,000.
so we're paying like 11,000 for 12 days in the summer compared to the $16,000 budget for an entire year. So I'm just wondering if there's more effective use, like something, considering something like this, like, hey, we can use our money more effectively. Or are there ways to get gains or ways to do some of the, and kind of redistribute that?
I wanted to just go back to the survey, exit survey question that Chris had, real quick. I get, my ask would be potentially some other creative way to do that, only because we're now, it's done. And so I know I'm surveyed out. Like, I get tons and tons of surveys in terms of just participation in the survey. I don't know that now that it's over, how many people are actually going to participate in the survey. And maybe this can't happen for this past summer. Maybe the survey is the way to go, but just thinking ahead, if we're doing this next summer, maybe, I don't know if there's a end of program type of reception or something for the parents and have it done there while you have them. Just thinking of different ways to get the data as opposed to a survey.
And again, this is like probably getting too in the weeds with it, but so there, it's like there's the academic component to this program, but there's also all the special guests that came in. You know, so being able to build in some of those special events as ways for students to come together in the summer, throughout the summer, even if they're doing asynchronous work and it's not a true in-person program, but like a special event day where, you know, come to the playground at CES and Gustavo's Karate will be here doing that. I don't know, because then again, you're linking kids together for that social component, which seems to be a big part of the program.
And,
I don't
and
know,
the fun
something to think
assemblies and
about.
activities we also talked about, there's a tremendous resource of virtual field trips.
Right.
And we did, we looked at all these other school districts that are offering these asynchronous summer assignments. A lot of them have summer learning hubs. So, you know, we brought this to you knowing that others are successfully doing it as well.
I mean, right, because I feel like we can reach so much more. I mean, 200 kids out of over 5,000 in the district, like, and again, I guess we're not really including our high schoolers in this, but still, I feel like we can reach the potential to reach a lot more kiddos. So I would love to keep like talking about it and working through it.
Can you use your mic, Mark? Sorry.
Do you have any sense of the increase in engagement if it's
At the other
asynchronous?
school districts? No, I do not, but we can reach out to them and ask them.
Yeah, I think, you know, to Beth's point, I agree. I think it's great that that yes, this could be offered for others. I wonder, you know, could this be a yes and not an either or, to Gal's point around hybrid, right? Could we offer something like, what would it cost for our teachers to create these resources? Are they even interested in creating these resources throughout the year? What would that cost? What would it cost to do this, like, extracurricular social component and the engagement piece and all of that? What happens with the food component? To me, that's also something that's top of mind for me for students, and access to food throughout the summer. And sometimes school is where we get it, right? So just keeping that in mind as well. But I think maybe seeing like some different options and some costs that align to it, I think could be really helpful.
If I could make just a little suggestion, the different situation, but same type of thing. The tech school has like summer camps that run like for 4 days, and it's based on certain like topics of what the kids want to do. But maybe reach out to them and see how, like, if they've had any of these encounters where they've had to modify because of the way kids were attending or not attending, things like that. And I know people pay for that, so it's a little different, but they might have some of the same kind of situations that might be helpful to learn from. I don't know.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more ask. Along with the data, could we see the current budget and how it's broken down currently? Like how much of it is staffing, how much of it is food, like just to get a sense of that. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
I know it seems like a lot. I just want to say, like, we just want it to succeed. We all want it to succeed. So we want to, be supporting you and your endeavors to make it succeed. Not like we're like giving you all this, like, we want this, we want this, we want this.
Absolutely,
We
we
really want to
understand
see
and
see
appreciate
it
it.
succeed. So just.
Great. All right, now Mrs. Burke is going to talk about ESY, which we don't have anything but a choice to run. Mrs. Burke?
It does work. Okay, so the Extended School Year Program, or ESY, as you know, is mandated, and that was offered this summer from July 1st through July 31st, Tuesdays through Thursdays, 9 to 3, and we held that at Ridge Park Elementary School. For those of you who do not know, ESY programming is individualized instructional programs that are provided beyond the school day or the school year for students who have disabilities. Eligibility is determined by the IEP team, and it follows the criteria that's set forth by the state. It's considered to be necessary when the benefits that students have, that they've gained during the school year, will be significantly jeopardized if they do not have programming throughout the summer. And certainly the goal then is for them to work on targeted skills that are outlined in the IEP, determined by the IEP team, and the goal is for the students to therefore be able to hit the ground running when school resumes in September, rather than having to spend an inordinate amount of time reteaching so that they can move forward. This year we had 132 students attend. There were 105 elementary students and 27 secondary students. 100% of the students made progress in at least one of their targeted IEP goals. For those who made improvements in the majority of their targeted goals at the elementary, that was at 70% and 93% at the secondary level. It was a wonderful program. We had high attendance. Higher, I don't have the data in front of me, but we were pleased with the attendance this year. It was much better than last year, and of course again next year. We found that when we changed the days that we operated from Tuesday through Thursday and made it full day, it allowed for families could have extended weekends, which was helpful, and also we were able to get more staff because they could have prolonged weekends. So we found that by doing it that way, we were able to have higher attendance by both staff and students. Any questions?
I actually do have a data question related to this. So awesome. So all of our students improved in at least one of their targeted IEP goals. I think my curiosity is in this same time frame of, what are we talking about? 3 days, 4 is 12, right? 12 days, is it 12? All of July, right? So in that like same time frame, are our students during the school year showing similar growth rates within that same
I
time
would
frame?
say probably we have higher growth rates during the school year because it's certainly for a longer period of time and every day and with their own teachers. These are not teachers who our students are familiar with during ESY. So they're also getting to, and they're also not necessarily with the same students.
Right.
So we.
I'm just curious if it's comparable to the school year, or if it's more, or I'm just trying to get an understanding of how much improvement takes place during the summer versus that same time frame within the school year.
Yeah, I don't have the exact data with me, but I probably can say that 100% of our students make progress towards at least one of their IEP goals. As far as showing improvement in the majority, I'd have to look at all of the data. We have over 1,000 students for whom we're collecting that data. And keep in mind, too, the students who do attend are students probably who have more severe needs. Yeah.
Karen, since we talked about this for the summer academy, what's the cost?
What's the cost for? To be honest, I don't have that data with me, but it is covered through IDEA, through federal funding.
Okay.
So we make sure that that's where the costs are contained.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along to induction. Mr. Joe Bassetti continues to put on a wonderful induction class for all of our new teachers. And again, I will say our new teachers are amazing. They were a great group throughout every one of the induction sessions. We just met with them a little bit ago for our first meeting of the school year, and they continue to be excited, so we love that.
Thank you, Dr. Grigaitis. Just wanted to talk about a couple of highlights. So we do have 27 new teachers to the district. Of that number, 8 are brand new to the profession, which is really exciting to welcome them aboard. We have K-12 placements to go through. All of the content areas that we place would take far too long, but it ranges from our elementary folks all the way to high school social studies. So we have a really, really rich class in terms of their backgrounds there. Years of experience range from 1 year to 14 years. So even in terms of the diversity of their background of experience, we do have some wonderful folks coming in. So the planned induction activities that we do in opening week in August happen right before the professional development week that we have regularly planned. We had a litany of sessions from more operational items like human resources to we had an AI session that we held in the afternoon to catch people up to speed with the work that the committee is doing here in CSD. We also capstone that entire experience off with a bus tour that we do annually with Mr. George Hankins, who acts as our kind of resident historian for CSD, and that's always the highest rated session that we have. So the feedback was really positive from folks. They also do some preliminary goal setting and just articulate any questions or needs they have during that first week so we can best support both at our level and at the building level with their mentors and so on. So we do have those monthly meetings. As Dr. Grigaitis indicated, we just finished one up right across in the library just about an hour ago. With those monthly meetings, we also do have building-based meetings that they have with principals and their mentors. So we do differentiate that experience. We also have master teachers come in to offer some of those sessions, as well as folks from other departments like pupil services. Next month's session will be Dr. Figueroa Douglas, which we're very excited about. And then, again, continuing mentorship and resources for folks who are mentoring those new inductees, as well as the inductees themselves. We're very excited to continue working with them.
This is awesome, so thank you. Thank you for sharing. This is more related to, I think, HR, which we're not getting into this evening, but recognizing that we had 27 new friends come join us in the Colonial School District. A few are probably because of growth. We recognize that. But we had talked about before this idea of an exit survey understanding a little bit more. And yes, there's retiring, and yes, some folks are leaving, but just want to bring that up again for HR and put that out there again to the group, that we would love to see, again, more of that data around the folks who have left versus the folks that are coming in, and just start to understand those trends and patterns over time.
So we can, I'll ask Michelle for the next meeting,
Okay.
because they did do them.
Great.
Whether or not, I don't know how many people responded to
Great.
the exit surveys, but
Yeah, and I
I'll
know we
ask
were
her to
just
bring
starting
that
it and
data for the
piloting it.
next
Yeah.
HR meeting.
Yeah, but this is great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I can assure you that they are taking place this year.
Yeah.
The exit surveys, because we've already had a couple.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Excuse me. About mentorship? Is it individualized? If I could be new to the district, but I could have 20 years under my belt, so it's going to look a little different for that kind of teacher versus the newbies who are completely fresh out of school?
Yes, excellent question. So we do offer customized options for that. So folks that are new to us and new to the profession, they get 32 hours roughly, give or take, in the first year with a mentor. We always strive to make sure that they are on the same grade level, or if it's a content area specific teacher, that they are like adjacent to each other. So very often we can have folks that are right next door to each other in terms of their teaching assignments. So that's great. Folks that are new to us, but maybe not new to the profession, we do offer mentoring hours for them as well. But we try and be sensitive to where their needs are and what type of experience they're looking for. So we're very intentional with principals and lateral partnership to make sure that we're making the best match for them. And then meeting with mentors as well to make sure that they're effectively coached in how to mitigate, scenarios as they come up, and provide effective resources for them. So that's how we approach it.
One other quick question, Joe, is the induction class, the week-long induction week, is that required? And if so, are they told that at hiring?
So yes and yes. Yes, it is required. Folks who, even if they have completed induction in another district that have earned tenure, so the folks, on that kind of latter end of their career with the 14 years of experience, they are still invited for that year one experience. That is a local LEA policy that we have. So as a past practice, and is something that we insist on at Colonial, is that they are, they're invited as well.
Thank you. Any other questions about induction? All right, moving right along, we are going to continue our discussions for professional learning, but at this time it is for all of our staff in the Colonial School District. So we had 3 days in August for professional learning. And before we talk about what sessions we offered for all staff, it's most important, and we did this last year too, we ground everything in the mission and the vision of our school district. So that is new this year. Many of you realize that we did update our Future Ready Comprehensive Plan. So we are actually still waiting on final approval from TDE, but I am sure that they're not going to change our mission and vision on us. So we're sharing that with everyone all throughout our professional learning. So we changed that for students to learn, grow, and contribute to a supportive school community that is welcoming for all. And our vision is to prepare open-minded, resilient, lifelong learners and leaders who will enrich our world. So when we talk a little bit more about our professional learning, our goal is to make sure that our professional learning aligns with both our mission and our vision of the school district. The other thing we worked hard to align was our educational value statements. So I'm not going to read them all to you, but you've seen these before as well. We have had some of our Future Ready Comprehensive Planning meetings centered on the Future Ready Comp Plan, and these are the values as well. So please know that we also take into consideration these value statements when we are planning for our professional learning. So we're going to get into our priority, and Mrs. Wilczek is going to share with us our priority and talk a little bit about how that then delineated to our professional learning
Yep.
and our interim targets.
And you should know too that part of this presentation that you're seeing right now was actually shared with every single faculty member at the start of our professional learning, so that we were all on the same page, understanding the changes to our mission, to our vision, our values, but also understanding what our targets and our goals were over the course of the next 3 years. So every offering that we are going to provide for teachers, we really want to make sure that we are instilling what we have put into our comprehensive plan so that you will see that threaded throughout. So when we revisit this with you after our November PD and also after our February PD, you'll see these threads in everything that we're doing. This particular slide is kind of a summary of the presentation that we shared with you last spring after we submitted our comprehensive plan to PDE. And we tried to make it as simplified as possible so everyone could really wrap their heads around it. Our priority is for us to provide students what they need so that they can be successful socially and academically. And we put the social aspect first because, as we know, if students do not feel as though they belong and they are accepted, then they're not going to be able to succeed academically. And that also ties in the work that Melissa and her team is doing with our EIB initiatives. And then in addition to that, the goals that we have set forth, there's one that we're going to meet our interim targets for growth and achievement, our specific interim targets, and you'll see that threaded throughout individual building initiatives and our school improvement plans, and then target it through our professional learning, as well as provide professional learning that is specific to the individual building and staff needs, allowing leaders within the building to make those determinations and provide those offerings so it's not always top down. And so we are in the first year of a 3-year journey, and we already know that there's things that are in place that we are doing that are working well, but we really need to hone in on how we are using the data that we have in a strategic way to make sure that we're making informed decisions. And so over the course of the summer, we did look a lot at the protocols that we have in place and how we can strengthen them to make sure that we're supporting our subgroups. So that was one of the big initiatives that we set forward. In fact, that we had a meeting with department leaders, both at the middle school and the high school level, to speak specifically about this, to talk about those subgroups. And so again, part of the presentation at the beginning of the year was that we worked with departments and individual PLT teams to talk about how they can do that better within their own classrooms and within their own departments. So that's going to be a primary focus that we're going to see coming forward. So when you come back and after we have our school improvement meeting, I think we do that in January typically, where we do like kind of that round robin of all the buildings. Hopefully, as a result of the work that we've been doing during this particular August week of PL, you will see a little bit more of that embedded there from the work that we've been doing. And then again, just to strengthen our work on that data and make really intentional curriculum changes based upon where we see strengths and weaknesses. And then hopefully by that 3rd year, we will reach those interim targets that we have set in place. And then lastly, these action steps. So you'll see that there are 4 action steps, and these are what we highlighted in the comprehensive plan. But these are the areas that we are going to be focusing our professional learning over the next 3 years. So in a second, I will show you the slides of what we did a couple weeks ago in August, and hopefully you will see these themes somehow threaded throughout. The first is protocols. We're really focusing again on consistent protocols. We don't want to have one department doing something completely over here and another department doing something completely different, or one building doing something different than another building, but that we have a set format in place of how we're going to look at data and have protocols in place so that we can measure success and measure areas for growth. We're also going to take a look at the student-centered supports that we offer. We want to make sure that we're offering really excellent opportunities for intervention, for enrichment, and it's based again on data that we know is research-based, and it's going to support individual student needs. The belonging work that we're continuing to doing, Melissa's team had a great start at the beginning of the school year with the professional development that every single teacher had the opportunity to work through, and that's going to be ongoing, and we already have those meetings set up throughout the year for that leadership team to keep that movement rolling for the individual building initiatives as well as our professional learning days. And then lastly is empowering leadership. And when we say empowering leadership, we don't mean leadership of just building principals. We're talking about department leaders. We're talking about teacher leaders, master teachers, etc. People that within the district have taken on a role of leadership to really help make informed decisions of where professional learning can go based on evidence that we have and feedback from their peers and data that they see. So on the next slide, you'll see some of our offerings that we had a few weeks ago in August. And I can't see that from here because I'm getting old and my eyes are really bad, so I have to put it on my computer. I apologize. But we had different threads, and the first 2 that you see there, one is supporting neurodivergent students, and the second is Teach Happier. Those 2 particular sessions, obviously, we're talking about how we can differentiate for students of all various different needs with our neurodivergent students. and how those particular strategies are not just good for some students, they're really good for all students. So that was a great session that we had offered from In Mind Services and Josh McNeil. We brought back Suzanne, oh my gosh, I can't remember Suzanne Daly, thank you, who came and spoke with us last year. We had excellent feedback from her, and she really set a great tone for our teachers about how they can help with their own mindset and being positive to have a great start to the school year and doing, taking those little steps for themselves for their own benefit, for their own improvement, and of course, being there to make their kids more successful. Of course, we did some information regarding mandated reporting to make sure that we are up with what is needed in terms of the state. And Melissa and her EIB teams also worked with ADL in responding to bias incidences. And so that was received by every single teacher across the district. We had a wonderful chalk overview for teachers to ensure that they had understanding of curriculum requirements that we have in place and the structure that we use to ensure that there is assessment that builds upon itself to make sure that all components of curriculum are in place. And then the two other last sessions that we had, we needed Magic School. Magic School is our new AI tool that we're using consistently as part of our, oh my gosh, what do we call that? Thank you, the steering committee identified last year. So this is going to be our focus at the secondary level. They did receive training directly from Magic School on how they can use the tool and also how students can use the tool. So teachers are taking that to heart, and this is our pilot with that right now. So we will see, hopefully come January, where we are with that. And then lastly, of course, the presentation that I mentioned is reviewing with all faculty our comprehensive plan to make sure that we're all on board to understand where we're going to be moving over the course of the next 3 years. So hopefully you'll see threads of that as we share out what we've done over our professional learning days, and it will be embedded in what we do.
And I just wanted to add on when we were talking about our priority and aligning it with our mission. And we talk about providing successful supports for all of our students. You're going to see a difference. And when we do have our meetings in January and February with our elementary and secondary folks, our new data protocols, our new interim targets that we're looking at are very specific to every subgroup that we have. So that was the important shift that we made with this new comprehensive plan. We're looking at all of our students, not just our all student subgroup this year. So that was a big shift, and that was the priority of providing all students what they need. So questions on the professional learning piece?
I just want to acknowledge you and your team for this presentation overall. And what really resonated with me in that last part about professional learning is the words alignment, consistency, and data is thread seamlessly throughout. And I feel as a listener, a really, really clear picture of where we're headed in terms of curriculum. And I just want to express gratitude to all of you for that. I think that that's amazing. And thank you for continuing to think forward about the shifts for subgroups and supporting teachers with Teach Happier and things along those lines. I just really feel a lot of gratitude to all of you for the work that you do. So thank you.
Hi, sorry again. Always a teacher. So I'm looking at this from a teacher perspective. How do I quantify, I guess, that my teaching approaches that are incorporating the thread specifically of belonging are being effective with the subgroups? That's my question, because often, we talk about the belonging and different techniques of belonging. So how can I make sure that I'm doing it to the point where it's having a positive impact on those subgroups in particular?
That is a great question. Oftentimes what we do is we refer back to the PSSM, the Psychological Sense of School Membership. And we have been involved now for 5 cycles. And each time we have about a 3.7 to a 3.8 out of 5. And even our subgroups that have opportunities to improve show improvement over time. So I will be sharing that data later on. So that is the best way to gauge that sense of belonging is through our PSSM.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. We're going to turn the show over to Mr. Merck, and he's going to share some exciting updates with us about our elementary math program.
Good evening again. Just so you know, that picture on that previous slide, that's a fourth grader trying to do calculus. That's not our current fourth grader doing fourth grade.
That's my
math.
husband trying to do my fourth grade son's calculus. He literally just texted me because he can't figure out the math rate.
Right. So anyway, but there are two things I wanted to talk about with you this evening. One is the K-3 math pilot and one of our new assessment tools. So first is the K-3 math pilot. As you're aware, the past 2 to 3 years, grades 4 through 8 implemented new math resources. At CES, grades 4 and 5, they implemented illustrative math by Kendall Hunt, and it's Colonial Middle School, Desmos Math by Amplify. One of the reasons why we are looking at a new K-3 math resource, well, we want to bring our materials up to date at those grade levels, but the publisher for those resources is no longer updating that our current resource, which is Investigations. Last spring, a group of volunteer K-3 teachers representing each grade and school began exploring options. One was Savas Experience Math, and the other one was Kendall Hunt Illustrative Math. Savas Experience Math is Savas's newest program and is the eventual successor to Investigations. And given the success we've had with Investigations over however many years we've used it, we felt it important to consider that publisher, that resource. And then while we're looking at illustrative math, that provides continuity with our CES resource that they've adopted. The primary goals with selecting a new math resource, we want to make sure it supports the Common Core standards and Colonial School District's K-3 math curriculum. We also want to make sure it vertically aligns with our entire math program, K-12. And then last but certainly not least, it provides teachers and students, we want to make sure we provide teachers and students with the comprehensive materials, lessons, activities, assessments, and supports that have characterized our curriculum up to this point, especially the engagement piece that students have at the K-3 level with math. Our timeline, and this is flexible, we're really going to try to stick to this, is pilot both resources this fall, meet as a team to discuss and assess the resource using a district rubric that we've adopted as a math department, make a decision during this year's budget process, just so we can give the budget office a heads up on what's coming their way, and then begin looking at implementation next school year. So that is the information I have for our K-3 math pilot at the moment.
I just have a question about the implementation part of it. So with the math curriculum, how do you present the new curriculum to the teachers, and how do they get onboarded with that before they have to teach it? That makes sense.
Yes, so we have training the year before. So, going with whatever we're going to adopt this year, we would have training in the spring. And if everything moves according to the timeline. And then we would have, during our open week, a good portion of the time will be dedicated to those teachers learning, continuing to learn about the resource and the curriculum that was created for.
Okay. And how long did we have the current one?
Investigations before I came.
I think 2017 is when we.
Okay. That was the current version, but
Right.
I think we're on our third version.
Yeah.
So it's been a good number of years. I would say early 2000s, maybe.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that the teachers are ready to teach those. I don't know. When my oldest went through, they changed something, and literally when they got to the high school level, because she was the first grade and they were moving into this, got to the high school, the teachers were literally telling them they couldn't assign the homework on the board before class started, because they had to know where they ended at that class period to know what the homework should be that day, because they hadn't taught that lesson before to know, so it'd be kind of nice that they would feel comfortable teaching.
And one of the things that we consistently remind our teachers is the standards are what drives our curriculum. Pennsylvania sets those, so they don't change, but the resource that we use to deliver it. But Mr. Mark did describe, that's exactly what we had done here. Last spring, they had training for their new program, and then in August, they had more chunks of time devoted to that, and we made up the other sessions as needed.
And I assume that you have math coaches in each of the buildings or available that they would go through if there were any issues with the teachers?
That would be Mr. Merck.
Yes. This would be- I'll be back.
We do have supports through master teachers as well.
I have a question that is either timely for this slide or the next slide. It's probably the next slide. I'm wondering once you go through the next slide, if you could come back to the two different pilots and talk through what tier 2 or tier 3 looks like for each of those potential curriculums. Does that make sense?
Yes. So the next thing we're looking at is the MAT screener that we want to implement in K5. It's called Delta Math RTI. Now, if you try to search for it, don't just search Delta Math. You have to add the RTI letters at the end because there's another Delta Math that's out there. But it's a new addition to the district's assessment tools. The process is, it's very efficient, it's informative, and it mirrors and is parallel to the strategies we use for ELA. ELA also has a screening tool, and we thought it's important as we're moving towards our new comprehensive plan. We want to make sure we have those same strategies as well for math. The big takeaway with this screener is it integrates accelerated learning strategies within a support framework to help students complete unfinished learning. Like, that's the biggest thing with this is what is it we're going to, that's really how we're going to utilize this program within our gain time, small group time, and even some morning meetings if it's appropriate then. The components include a screener for the fall, winter, and spring. It has standards aligned reports with tier recommendations. And then it does come with tier instruction and practice. It has evidence-based recommendations, progress monitoring, and targeted interventions. Now I'd like to show a little quick video, if that's okay with you. So if you could click on that implementation video, Nancy.
Monitor progress and practice to build or maintain conceptual understanding. Mrs. Alvarez is a 5th grade teacher. She's beginning to screen her students using the Fall 5th Grade Readiness Screener. This online screening session will take about 25 minutes, and her students' data will be available at the end of the session. Mr. Jones is a math interventionist at Delta School. He's leading a 5th grade data meeting with Mrs. Alvarez and Mr. Barnes, the other 5th grade teacher. They will use the standard summary report to identify which readiness standards to begin interventions with all students. Then they will use the intervention group report to schedule groups of students for each readiness standard. And the student performance report will be used to communicate with parents their students' strengths and plans to provide targeted support. Carly and Jose are 5th grade students at Delta School.
I'll give it a second.
Last year, Jose was proficient on the state assessment, and Carly was not. Delta Math data shows that Carly may benefit from Tier 2 intervention for 5 of the 6 readiness standards, and Jose may benefit from Tier 2 intervention for 1 readiness standard. The next week, Mr. Jones begins providing Tier 2 intervention on the 1st readiness standard. Throughout the 8-day intervention cycle, students explore, discuss, and reflect on the learning target using visual representations to support their thinking. Each day, student progress is monitored using a quick check and growth chart. As each student meets the learning goal for a 3rd time, they are exited from the intervention group. Over the next few months, Mr. Jones continues to provide intervention to flexible groups for each readiness standard. During that time, Mrs. Alvarez and Mr. Barnes revisit readiness standards during classroom warm-ups to strengthen and maintain conceptual understanding using Delta Math's visual guided practice, visual fluency cards, and independent practice games and activities. Quick checks and growth charts are also used to help students set personal goals and monitor progress. Following the winter readiness screening, Delta Math provides data to celebrate growth and plan additional Tier 2 support. Carly is now at benchmark on 4 of the readiness standards and is scheduled with Mr. Jones for additional support on the remaining 2. Jose performed at benchmark on all 6 of the readiness standards and is not scheduled for additional support. Over the next few months, Mr. Jones continues working with students who may benefit from additional Tier 2 support. Later in February, all 5th grade students screen up using the Winter 6th Grade Readiness Screener, and that data will be used to plan targeted support on the high-priority math standards for the current school year. To conclude the year, all 5th grade students screen up again using the Spring 6th Grade Readiness Screener. This data shows that most students are more ready to learn math at the next grade level. Delta School, like many other schools, uses Delta Math to implement evidence-based recommendations provided by the Institute of Educational Sciences. To learn more, go to deltamath.org.
So one thing that they mentioned in the video that I might not have emphasized, like it really measures fluency, computation, and strategies around working with numbers in the 4 operations. And with something like this, it's really going to help support those students who struggle with computation and fluency, and which causes them to kind of struggle with their own grade level standards. So we're going to build these high priority skills within the students to boost what they can do with our regular curriculum.
Thank you. So just to go back to the question, so when we talk about GAIN and we're talking about students who need that extra support, like Jose and I forget the other young lady's name. Yeah, Carly. Is it going to be our practice to use this, or are we going to lean into something from Savas or illustrative math? Like, I'm just trying to get an understanding of or is it a combination of what that looks like?
GAIN will primarily use the Delta Math resources because they're directly aligned to what the screener is informing the teachers about.
So in combination with Lincoln.
Oh,
So
yes.
yeah, we typically use our benchmarks as well. So our benchmarks usually let us know which are our tier 1 students. However, this will let us know, much like ELA does, where we have holes to fill in. So we have students that aren't making it to tier 1. With our benchmark, this allows us to dig a little deeper. Why aren't they making it? So this will drive our tier 2 interventions, yes.
So the K-3 pilot will primarily serve as a tier 1 comprehensive implementation.
The pilot is only being used with several of our teachers. So we have always used investigations as our tier 1 instructional programming, yes.
So when we make the
flip
shift,
over, yes, exactly, same thing. Our math program will be our tier 1 tier 1 instruction.
Yep.
And then this will help us figure out what interventions and or enrichment we need to provide to our students.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions about math? All right, finally, we have a policy to review, and I don't believe there's going to be a lot of discussion around this policy because we have updated our Future Ready Comprehensive Plan. This is just updating Policy 101 to align. So we will revisit this policy every 3 years. And again, it just simply states what our district's new mission is, vision, and our value statements. And if the board wants us to, we will move it on to first read at our next meeting. And that, I think, is all for us, unless there's any other final questions from the board.
Any other board comment? Questions? All right. Any public comment this evening? No? Okay. All right. Seeing none, the curriculum committee is adjourned. Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready? Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Community Relations, Student Life, and Wellness Committee meeting for September the 8th, 2025. And is there any public comment on the agenda? No? With that being said, I know. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Burke.
Thank you, Ms. Epstein, and welcome everybody. We have 2 items on our agenda this evening. The first one is to talk about the new adult evening school online platform. And the second is to give you some of our EIB updates. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jess Lester, who's going to enlighten us about the new online platform.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for giving me a few minutes here to just talk a little bit about a switch we made this year to a new registration platform. I don't know if anybody checked it out, but I'm very excited about it, and I'm not sure why this is not showing. Is everybody okay if it's just in that view? So we launched it on August 18th, which was when we opened registration for adult evening school classes, and we made the move from a platform called RegTrack, RegWorks/RevTrack to something called CourseStorm. Part of the impetus for changing it was that RevTrack was going to increase the fees that we pass on to customers through the registration process, and over the last several years that we had been using that platform, it just wasn't really able to do some of the things that we needed it to do in order to be efficient. So began investigating some other platforms, and that's how we landed on CourseStorm. One of the big benefits that I think this new system has is just it's a more attractive site in general, easier to see and make connections between what the classes are based on the imagery that we select, all that good stuff. But I'll just tell you a little bit about the research we did. So I did demos with RegPack, ASAP, and CourseStorm. And as I noted, I just selected CourseStorm because, again, for the attractiveness of the store itself and the ease of use that it was going to bring for our customers and the lower fees. Those were some of the top reasons. And then on the back side of things, in terms of the administration of the program, it's easier for us to adjust pricing for our Gold Card members. So our Gold Card members are the 65 and older residents of the school district, and historically they have always received free adult evening school classes. Because that population has grown so much, and because we still need to pay the instructors that run our program, I've kind of made some adjustments to the pricing over the years where if classes are longer than 9 weeks, the Gold Card member fee isn't entirely free. It's half price, it's reduced. And so the previous system, we basically had to put in each class twice because we couldn't apply a discount across all of our classes. It didn't have that sophistication. So this new system allows the person registering to just answer the question, am I a Gold Card member, yes or no? And then it takes the discount off. And we only have to enter the class once. So that's very exciting for us in terms of setup. The other benefits to this system is that it does a lot of automated messaging. So, previously we were sending out reminders before a class would start, manually. The system does it 2 days in advance on its own. All we have to do is write the message that we want to send. There's also the ability for me to email all of the people rostered in a class at once. Again, the other system didn't really allow us to do that in an easy way. And when we have weather cancellations, as you can imagine, we want to get out the message as quickly as possible, and being able to just kind of click a button and have the message go out via text and email is wonderful. Previously, I was taking the information from one system, putting into our mass communication system, and then sending things out that way. So it was a little time consuming. Again, since we've launched, I think I've only had 2 phone calls from people that were sort of confused about how to use the new system, which is really great. And really their only confusion was from trying to plug in their old password information from the old system into the new one. And I just had to explain, well, I have to do, you just have to register and create a new account. So, and the other, one other major benefit is that the instructors for our classes are able to have their own logins to the system to see how registrations are going. Again, this eliminates them having to reach out to me having to look up what their numbers are. They can go in and see how many people they've got signed up for their class. They also can email everybody through the system, which is another huge benefit. So again, really pleased with how things have rolled out so far. And I was looking at numbers comparing this time this year to last year, and we're basically at the same amount of registrations, which I guess is good, but I'd like to see it be, I was hoping it would be higher just because it'd be easier. So we'll see, I'll keep track of those numbers and just, try to see if we're, getting more people as a result of how easy the system is to use. We have, as you can see from the numbers there, 178 gold card members signing up for classes so far and 198 non-gold card members. Most of them are paying by credit card and not check, and most of them are going online. And then just again, as I'm looking through all of the data, I'm kind of thinking that in the future, some more pricing adjustments might be needed again, just because of the size of our gold card population has grown so much that, I feel like, maybe it's time to kind of think about making some adjustments in how we, provide benefits to the gold card members. So, and then again, CoreStorm is predicting that, we'll see growth in the program, but again, it's just starting out. So hopefully, knock on wood, that will happen. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
From your volume question, are there some classes that sell out, or is it, so like there's the popular classes and then it's kind of, we would want to, is it a reach problem, you think, for the rest of the people, or just is it the people don't know the courses exist, or the courses don't hit the people that want them?
So are you asking about classes that fill up right away, or
No,
classes
the
that
classes
are
that don't, like,
canceled
to get more people.
that don't get as many people? Yes. So I always tell this to prospective instructors. Like, I wish I had a crystal ball that could tell me which classes would really pick up steam with people and which don't. We try everything. I mean, I don't really ever tell somebody no if they come to me with a course idea, but there have been a couple, like we've had this poor gentleman, and I actually worked with him in my previous role, offers a workers' compensation class, never, gets maybe one person every so often. And I've tried to, sometimes I'll, say, well, maybe if you change the title or you change the content up a little bit, we would get, more people. So I do certainly try to work with them if classes aren't rostering, to think about what we could do to get more people interested in those classes. But we don't have a ton that don't run. It's a strong program. I think a lot of people are, appreciative of having the offerings that are there. So. And
then does the new site let you track clicks to conversions? Like what % of your traffic ends up signing up for a course? Or like how many clicks they make when they're on the site and how many classes they look at?
I don't think so. They do have a feature where if you have an empty shopping cart, and you leave it and don't come back to it, it'll prod you, hey, remember you were trying to sign up for, is that kind of what you're talking about?
No, just hey, are we getting 500 people to the site and only 178 are signing up, or are we getting 182 but 178 of them are signing up?
I see how many eyeballs versus actual transactions. I'd have to ask about that. I'm not sure if that capability exists, but it would be good to know.
I like the site notes.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Lester. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Figueroa Douglas, who's going to give us some updates on our equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Thank you, Mrs. Burke. I want to start by saying what I'm going to be sharing this evening is just an overview on how the Colonial School District is committed to equity, inclusion, and belonging through professional learning. The first stop is the ADL training, and I know it was shared a little bit earlier today, but I want to emphasize that it was our administrative team that first had the training during our administrative retreat this summer. And it was facilitated by myself, Randy Boyette, who is a regional director of the ADL and has been working closely with the Colonial School District for more than 2 decades, and Andrea Heyman. And with that training, we spoke about identity, contextualizing anti-Semitism, what's happening in schools across the nation. We reviewed the pyramid of hate, incident response, and to be to prevent, to prepare and respond, and unpack scenarios. So it was a really impactful training. It also embedded the other isms, but we're going to talk about how, as a district, we're going to focus on exploring some of the other isms through professional learning throughout the school year. And when we think about the pyramid of hate, and we're going to speak about that as we now pivot to the update to the student code of conduct. And we know that the level 3 offenses have been updated to explicitly speak about hate speech. And when we think about hate speech, oftentimes it is understood by our students that are older. But when we think about some of our younger students who probably don't necessarily always know what they're saying or what the meaning is behind what they're saying, we refer to them as red light words, similar to a traffic light. Green words being positive, yellow being somewhat concerning, and then those red words being aligned to hate speech. And what's really awesome about this rollout as it relates to the code of conduct is that through this training, we were able to then, during open house, update our families to what the expectations are around hate speech and a code of conduct. Our students, so principals have been visiting classrooms, and this was also revisited during new teacher orientation, and it's going to continue to be revisited throughout the school year. So when we talk about building turnaround training that's offered through our EIB teams, that's exactly what we're speaking about, making sure that this is a touch point and at the forefront of everything that we're discussing throughout the school year, beyond just the opening of the school year. I want to now speak about the incident reporting. And this was one of the huge takeaways that we received from the ADL. And with this incident reporting, we want to make sure that we know what hate speech is, how to identify it, but we want to also make sure that we are analyzing what's happening. And the way to do that is by keeping the data for that. And so our elementary schools and our middle school will be using PowerSchool to house these incidents that take place. The high school will continue to use a program called RUVNA. And what's important here is that we will have the opportunity to unpack these scenarios and also use it to inform our training around equity, inclusion, and belonging. So we want to make sure that this incident reporting is happening every single time and to be aware of some of the trends that may or may not be taking place. And at the bottom of this slide, you'll see upcoming training, Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. They were referred to us from the NAACP. So we spoke about earlier the other isms. What we want to do is continue to explore how we can support the needs of our diverse student community. We want to make sure that we are continuing to equip ourselves with the strategies, the understanding that's necessary to support the needs of all of our students. And on the last slide, it's a blurb with our statement of commitment to addressing hate speech, slurs, and bias. This is the abbreviated version. And again, we work really closely with our Director of Pupil Services, Mrs. Burke. We worked really closely with principals throughout the summer, other administrators, and special thanks to Jessica Lester and her team for the communication that has been shared district-wide. Again, that is with our students, with staff, and the families that are tied to the Colonial School District. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. I had a quick question on the incident reporting. When you said for elementary and middle school, it's on PowerSchool, who's doing the reporting? Is that parents?
That's a good question. So no, it could be communicated from the parents to the school, but again, it's going to be pupil services working closely with the administration of the team, each school rather. So the principals and counselors will be working closely together and updating this reporting system.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a few quick questions. I appreciate the update and the intention that's been brought here, and I think that our community has shared with us some of the frustration around how we track incidents, how we are or not tracking incidents, and so on and so forth, specifically related to these level 3 incidents. I think my wondering is a little bit around two parts. One is we've done a lot of sharing, it sounds like, with staff, with families, with stakeholders. I'm just curious, have we gotten any feedback from them about that experience? And then two, as a board, we will often find friends who come to us in the audience because they're frustrated because something happened and we weren't clear about communication or we weren't consistent with communication or something along those lines, particular to such incidents. And so my wondering is, what process and what system have we put in place now that gives us a really clear plan so our families are aware, this is how we're going to communicate, this is how we're going to share when an incident occurs, this is how we'll share like how it was handled. I'm just, from a board sense, I would love to know a little bit more about what that's going to look like. It sounds like we have a great internal process, and now want to think about the external process.
Okay, I think the first big piece here is identifying what it is. And as you can see on this backdrop here, that it's spoken, written, digital, or nonverbal. And I think oftentimes we misinterpret what hate speech is. We don't really have a clear understanding. And I think that's why it's so important to define what it is so you can identify what it is if it happens in front of you. Secondly, are the expectations. So we spoke about the expectations to the student code of conduct. Oftentimes in our training, the foundation of all of our training is bias mindset. And when we think about our bias and our biases, it's important to understand that you have to have the tools to be equipped. And I think that's what you're speaking about. What do we do? So the system is understanding what it is, making sure that we are being trained to do it, making sure that we are being upstanders and not bystanders. And the way to be an upstander is knowing what's happening as it's happening and quickly responding to it, and then having a system in place to not only identify what it is, but see, like, are there any trends happening here? And then address it and inform our training through that. I hope I'm understanding your
I think
question
I think that's a great summary and synopsis of like what the process is, mostly internal. I think it's more about
I know what you mean, I think. So this was shared at every single open house at the secondary level. So families, this was all communicated to. Dr. Pagani and Dr. Kaplan and their teams went around or making their way around at the high school. The middle school, I believe it's completed. They have visited every single social studies classroom and have gone over what this means for students. What are we looking for? What this means. So we have talked with the families. The elementary open houses are all this week. And then I believe a letter is going out to the whole community. Is that true? Or information on our website about that code of conducts have been addressed. These are all in handbooks. Sorry, Jess, I asked you a question that I just Yeah. So is that more along the lines of what you mean? And then we are going to continue to revisit this all throughout the school year. Dr. Figueroa Douglas is setting up with our affinity groups, our student groups, meetings that we are going to attend, Dr. Christian, myself, Melissa, as well as the high school administration, to hear from them. How is it going? What are we seeing? Are we having a difference? They're going to be unpacking scenarios. What would you do if?
Right.
So when you say, how are we going to keep this?
So I think what I hear from our community often is we want to understand and we want to hear and know, what does our racial climate data look like? What does our level 3 incident data look like? And how are we addressing it? So basically, are all the things that we are doing, that we've said we're doing, the training, the affinity groups, all of the things, are they working or are they not? And how do we know? So I think my it's actually, now that like I'm hearing myself talk, it's more about the transparency to the community around what these incidents are, how they're trending, and how we're responding and supporting as these things arise, because they are going to, things are arising, right? So like, what's our external communication as well?
And I think that was the point of us actually collecting this data at the elementary levels as well. It's always been collected at the secondary levels, but, again, as this is a priority for the district, we are now, as Dr. Figueroa Douglas shared, we are now collecting that through Power School Incident Manager. So when it is seen by a student and a teacher, we will be able to share that with you in these meetings throughout the year.
And isn't that the data, at least at the middle school and high school level, published by the state? Doesn't the state, but like that's
But
like,
annually, right?
yes,
Well, yes, I was gonna
annually.
say, I think we need to see it more often, but I don't
But I
think
think for the
anybody.
community.
I know, but I don't think, most community members are not looking at that data. And so what I hear Sharon saying is that at our colonial community, the stuff that we hear is like, why don't we know what's happening and what's going on? And so how are we communicating at our colonial community level, not at the state level? That's not what I was gonna say, but, because I had a different question, because I forgot what you said the process was at the high school in terms of the tool that's being used. And that's probably a moot point, because my question is more, how are we motivating, especially at the secondary level, our students to report these types of incidents to staff? Because some of the things that, as a parent and as a board member that I hear from parents is their student doesn't want them to say anything. And so how can we, as a district, motivate parents to discuss this? Like, we're telling them, hey, these are all the things that we're doing, and we're doing training, and we're here to support you, but they're not necessarily reporting the behaviors.
I think something that's really important to note here, and I'm pulling this again from our PSSM data, is that our students trust the adults in a building. So one of the high points of the PSSM, and it's been consistent since we started, is that our students feel a real high sense of belonging with at least one adult in the building. And similar to the clubs that are established at the high school and the middle school, they have that. If they don't have that in their teacher, they have that in their club advisor. And it's something that we really pride ourselves on. So to your point, to continue to build and foster and sustain those positive relationships between students and teachers or staff is key here. And when you think about, I guess, the two more serious incidents that took place towards the end of last school year, both were reported from students to a teacher, from students to an administrator. So to your point, just to continue to build and foster those positive relationships between our students and parents is important.
In addition to, is this on? It is. In addition to those, our students actually making a verbal connection or a personal connection to a staff member, we still will maintain our safe to say forms, which are, certainly confidential, as well as our bullying harassment forms. So parents, students, anybody can make those reports, and we have received them from students, but and parents as well. So those will be maintained also. And then what we will do is take those when we get them and feed them into the systems that we're putting in place so we can quantify. And that's what we want to do.
To build on what Gail and Chow were saying, do we have a consistent baseline for when and all parent email goes out? So I know some incidents got a district-wide communication, some did not. So the parents who were involved in the ones that didn't go out felt that it was being ignored or treated as lesser than the one that went out. And I think that came up at the last meeting. So if we have just a standard, like, all of these incidents are happening, we know, we're tracking them, we're not going to send you an email every time a kid makes a stupid comment or a kid is wrong, but like, your incident isn't lesser than, we just can't send an email at every time. Like, if we have that, just here is when we send it and why, just so that we can go to the parents. Like, we're still working on it. We're doing all these things. Like, but we're not brushing your incident under the table, and being able to have that policy or that procedure kind of defined for people, I think would be helpful.
Right, I think that's part of the transparency piece, is just like, are we sending it to full district or only the school for which the situation occurred? Because if we're only sending it to the school for which the situation has occurred, we're allowing the openness of social media to now tell the story. And it's often not the true story of what has happened, as opposed to us being a little bit more transparent at the whole.
Yeah. And again, I think that's probably something that it's hard to put a policy into place. I think case by case, it really probably has to come down to administration discretion and trust that they're reporting things. I mean, the incident with graffiti in the bathrooms at the high school affected the entire high school community versus an incident that happened between potentially, 2 or 3 individuals, like on social media. So I think leaning in and trusting that we're communicating, maybe, I don't know, when something is far and wide reaching, because again, we're also talking about students. And I think students make mistakes, students make poor choices, and hopefully we are educating and learning and growing. And I would hate for it to be where somebody does something and then it's shared with the entire district. I mean, I think to some degree, we need to use some discretion and hopefully really learn and not just put everybody on blast when something occurs.
I guess I'm a little confused at that statement, because we're never putting anybody on blast. We're talking about the incident with no names. So I guess I'm a little confused about.
I think sometimes when an incident involves 1 or 2 people, it becomes more known. I don't know. I just
I think that's the problem. That's what I'm saying. So
everything's so. I think it just I think trusting that our administration is looking at carefully when does an incident impact the whole district or a building where a communication needs to go out to everyone versus when is it an incident that needs to be discussed between the parties involved.
And I
mean, right. I think it's such a gray line, but I think it's hard to
I think
put
it is
out
a gray line,
policy.
though, and I'm not going to speak for Rick or Sharon, but I think that the problem is that it's not about trust. We trust our administration to do their job. I don't think it's a matter of trust. I think it's a matter of how do we address the feedback that we're receiving from the community in terms of communication. And so how do we address that with a level of transparency that our community is receiving the information? So I don't think it's a matter of trust. And also, even when it's 1 or 2 students, it's going to hit social media, and then social media is going to be the storyteller. And once it hits social media, you can't take it back.
Right.
And so we don't get the opportunity to kind of tell, don't get the opportunity to tell the truth, right? The real story.
Right.
And without all the details, right? We don't need to put all of the details in our communications. But that's kind of, from my perspective, what I'm thinking.
Agreed. And I was going to say, for me, it is about trust, and it is about the impact that it has on those 1 or 2 individuals, and then it spills into social media. But what I would love to see the committee do is to think really strategically about what is our external communication strategy and system that we use objectively to share when incidents aligned to what we're talking about here occur, and that we're consistent with that communication across the board, whether it's 1 student, 5 students, or whatever it is, and commit to being very public during our monthly meetings around that data. So we'll come together and we'll say, all right, month of October, this is how many level 3 incidents we had. This is an increase of hopefully 0 from the time before, et cetera. I think we need to be as transparent and as visible as we possibly can to build that trust and to understand whether or not all of these things that we're putting in place preventively or aiming to put in place preventively are working. just like we would for our ELA and our math data, right? Same idea.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I don't think, sadly, there are enough incidents that if we send an email out every time there is an incident, that it will dilute the message that there's a line for the transparency part too, and but I like having the data public. This is where we discuss the data consistently. This is available. This is how we're working on it. All of that versus the fifth graders, or if we say the policy is we don't send an email out to things that happen in the middle, below the middle school, or we don't just being able to consistently say this is our guideline. Sometimes we'll have to deviate from exceptions, but just having guidelines that we can say here's why we followed the guidelines. We don't think this 10-year-old can make a rational choice to do this thing in this way, so we didn't tell everyone. Because the other thing that happens is you get the email, and if you don't know, then you start whispering what was that about, and then you get all the salacious stories that way too. So trying to sort all that.
Not a policy, but I think Rick said it well, a guideline, guidelines, right? So stuff happens in the community that doesn't necessarily happen in the schools as well, and it oftentimes it kind of feeds into the school, right? We are 2 weeks in right now, so there's probably stuff that happened in the summer that's going to now come into the schools, and so when it happens outside, we can't control that, but we can control how we communicate when things are happening within the district.
And I think that many of you have said the administration makes a recommendation and makes a decision about that. The factors that are also included could be solicitor suggestion, could be what the police is saying, could be an active investigation that we're simply not allowed to comment on. So I think there is a level of trust that we do have to expect of our community. But I do think the administration talks through every single different scenario in a way, and then does inform the board about that as well. But there simply are situations that can't be communicated for a number of reasons. But I do believe that one of the reasons why we wanted to have a system to collect all this data was to increase the transparency. And perhaps it is these committee meetings where we talk about student life that we could share that.
We certainly can communicate and should communicate if we see an increase in incidences. I think we should also celebrate when we see a decrease in incidences, because I think that's reinforcing for those people who are learning. I mean, we are an educational facility, and not everybody comes to school with the tools in their toolboxes to use expected language or express expected ideas. And so we do want to make sure that we're not stifling kids as well from being able to communicate and share with us when something happens that is upsetting to them. So I think it's a balance, much the same as we communicate when there are physical altercations. It's certainly if every time there was an incident where somebody shoved a kid or said something mean to a student, I don't want to see any of this, and I hope it's not taken the wrong way. Bullying, the term bullying, and that has become somewhat blown out of proportion to a degree that it has lost its importance, I think, sometimes. And I don't want to see that happen with this. This is too important. So I do think that we need to make sure that we are communicating and that we are being transparent. At the same time, I don't want it to become so common that when something gets sent home, people say, oh, it's another one of those letters, and not address it. We are taking it very seriously to the point that we made certain that it was being communicated at every back to school night. And the same message was being communicated across the district. And we made sure that in looking at what we put in the handbook, that we were very explicit. Instead of using broad terms, this is what a level 3 means. And we were very explicit. This was a very abbreviated slide, but in the handbook, it is listed in bulleted form what it means, because people don't realize that you may think that you're joking. It's not a joke. So innuendo, is a bias. Don't do that. I know one of the things that we talked about when we met as a group was, do we ever say to kids, these are the things you're not allowed to do? Because we think that they're coming to us with that already known. And I can tell you from personal experience, things that have been said to me in my classroom, that it like took me aback, because kids don't know. They hear things at home, they hear things on the street. Now with social media, they see things constantly. And we need to educate them what's allowable and what's not. And this is what will happen if we hear these things or see these things. So we will certainly be transparent, and I think having this reporting will help us quantify things in a way that we were not able to do before. But if that's happening and you're seeing that maybe we're not addressing it as much as we should, we need to know that, because you hear first from out in the community.
And oftentimes we speak about age, like the difference of, students not knowing because of their age. But something else that we need to really discuss, and it was brought up earlier, is this whole neurodivergence, right? And the diversity within that. So you can have a student that could be at the high school level, but emotionally or intellectually, not there. So that understanding may be very similar to that of someone in an elementary school. So when we think about the red light words, sure, that's for our elementary students. But when we think about some of the diverse needs of our students here at the Colonial School District, we got to think about beyond age and that diversity that exists outside of just age. So when we think about our students that are identified, our students that are emotionally disturbed, have intellectual disabilities, may or may not always understand the first time. We can't share that as a community. Well, the person that did, X, Y, and Z had this. We can't do that because of FERPA. But that is also something that we should also consider as well.
So one quick clarifying question. So I think what I'm hearing from the board and would be useful is a transparent process for if this, then that. Simple flow diagram. I know it's more complicated than that, but there are instances when then sharing can happen. So I think a clear and transparent process of how it's internalized, how it's adjudicated, right? Because there's some investigation, right? You made the point that sometimes the police are involved, sometimes there's considerations beyond just what was said and how it's reported. So one is just the transparency of understanding how and when it's ingested, adjudicated, reported, and then separately how it's communicated to the community, when it's communicated to the community, if it's not communicated to the community. So I think that's one whole piece. The other piece is how often we can see the data so we can have conversations. We can't chase around small sample sizes, 4 to 3 to 5 to 6 to 7, right? That's very difficult. But once we have it with some regularity, whether it's monthly, I think sounds reasonable, but then we could begin to understand what the trends look like. If there could be seasonal trends, like we have no idea, right, of what we'll see. So I think that's the second piece of it. And then it's pointing to it and communicating that entire process. What you described in the back to school nights, we trust that was done effectively and it was heard. But then the piece about this is how we have a process to adjudicate, to report, and the board will receive these monthly, and they'll be posted here. They're here by the state annually, but they'll be here on the CSD website where you can go and peruse them on your own. I don't think, and then for us to look at that plan and say, we think this is missing, or maybe you can add that, right? I think that's what I'm collectively hearing. And then if we could respond to that, then we could sort of, whether it's in this forum or in an executive session, where we can make sure that we're all comfortable with what's being reported and how you came to the conclusions. And so we understand what the exclusions are, to the point that Dr. Figueroa Douglas just made, right? So we understand entirely. So then when we are in the community, we could be very explicitly clear. And lastly, maybe it was in the presentation, can we see the intake form to see how the information is collected, and then that becomes a 1 or a 0 on a form? Like,
Oh, the system.
Oh, Power School?
The incident manager and the coding?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's in there. And then what is there, and one more step in the process to which it then becomes aggregated? Right? Like, is what we see or what we might report if my son has an incident tomorrow at school, what I see is exactly then what we would see aggregated at the end of the month? Or is there a difference between those? So is there an adjudication step? Is there a step where information's aggregated? Is it blinded? Yeah, because I think the step between what somebody may report and what may be missing in what we see at the end of the month, right? Like, that sort of juxtaposition is really important for us to make sure we understand. In fact, this is all very abstract, and I take responsibility for not going and seeing the form, but some of the reporting pieces are abstract because I don't know what's reported versus the totality of what's on the intake form, and if there's any in between that may fall out or be added. Thank you, and great presentation.
That was a great summary. And I just want to add, like, I just want to, again, we come back to this idea of we're the board and we have the, you know, what do we call it? The 1,000-foot view, 900-foot view, or whatever it is, the 1,000-foot view, right? And that our goal is not to micromanage this process. It is not, although, and I hope it doesn't feel that way, but I think what we're asking for, to Mark's point, is just systems, guidelines, process, so we're aligned and we can be on the same page as we're moving forward with the community. So thank you.
Sounds good. Any other questions?
No, I just want to second what Sharon just said and also add that just as we're being clear about what is and what isn't hate speech, what are the potential consequences, what are the guidelines on when someone is the person who's gotten hurt? What's the follow through on that? We could always just make a blanket statement, counseling's available. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like? Is it the person who got hurt who has to then go and get that counseling, or is it offered right away? You know, it would be nice to know what are the follow-up care that occurs, because we can paint over hate speech written on the wall, but the feelings that it triggered and the emotions that it triggered are still lingering and still there. So how are we addressing those so that students also feel that they belong, to the point where even if they're having a great day, they're having a great day. But if they're not and something happened, they know that the adults in the building are going to wrap around and care continuously for them.
That's a really great question. And when we could just refer to the last two incidents that took place towards the end of the school year. There were two specific groups at the high school, and what we did, the administrative team there, myself, members of pupil services, the counseling team, went to both club meetings throughout that week just to make sure and touch base, to let them know that, listen, we're here for you. We know what happened. We know what took place. What can we do to further support you? And incidents that may be specific to one or two students, or less students than a group that represent a student body at a school. At the elementary level, they do a really great job of using it as a teaching moment. So I recommended certain books that fall into certain themes. And what the principal does, along with pupil services, is unpack the themes throughout the book to support the student that is offended, but also the student who did the offending, right? To make sure that those situations don't happen again and that they don't repeat themselves. So we definitely prioritize that. You know, when we speak about belonging, it goes beyond just some words on a paper. We want to make sure that our students truly feel that sense of belonging here, because without that sense of belonging, it's really difficult, not impossible, but really difficult for students to achieve, to reach self-actualization, and to reach their highest potential. So we want to make sure that we continue to do that. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, doctor. That was a great response.
Thank you.
Is there any board comment, any public comment on any of this? No? Any board comment questions? I know, right? That being said, this meeting is adjourned.